the judges, just let the illegals go. Well, then why shouldn't I just change my name to some new name and just say I'm illegal from Mars? I'll say I'm John Carter from Mars. I mean, that sounds pretty good. And they just pull me over and I'll just say, no speak Earthling. I mean, they admit the illegal aliens, if they do get arrested for DWI, just basically get released. I was talking to a prosecutor in Austin, off record. They actually came over to the office. And they've been there, I don't know, 14 years or longer. I don't want to give away who it is. In fact, where is that card? They said they'd give me a report off record, and I never even tracked it down. I can't keep track of all this. There's too much crime. And they were going, oh, it's true. And then they were telling me the judges, where the illegals come in with DWIs, and they'll give them maybe $100, or they get arrested for unpaid tickets or whatever, and they get like $10. $10? I certainly don't get that. I'm being discriminated against as a citizen because I comply with everything. I am abused and treated like filth. And it just shows the lawlessness of government. I mean, it's illegal for the NSA to be spying on everybody and to have the CIA director say the CIA is spying on citizens domestically, which he said 3 weeks ago in a public speech, and to brag, yeah, it's great. We don't really have the Fourth Amendment anymore. People just accept the fact. This is what he said. Go read the quotes. That your toaster, your clock radio, everything's got little systems now that listen to you or watch you. It's really great. Again, they're just getting everybody used to it. It's like the big dog, you know, walking over to the little dog. And you ever seen a big dog come get on top of a little dog and they'll urinate on them? They're marking them. They're saying, listen, I'm dominating you. Do you understand that? Do you get that? Do you understand that? And that's what's going on here. TSA is like, get your young daughter over here. It's groping time. I mean, that's right out of a nightmare movie. This is what it is. This is total criminal domination of the American people. We'll be back with our guest. Stay with us. Welcome to hour number 2 of our worldwide transmission. A lot happening in the world. We'll be interspersing the news throughout the 2 hours we have left here. Coming up, we have a preeminent financial expert, Mark Faber, joining us to get into the big sell-off in the stock market. The Fed saying they won't do QE3, but then saying they may do QE3. This is all just manipulation. Artificial volatility so they can profit from it. That is coming up. Towards the second half of this hour, I do want to give you a chance to talk to our guest, Bob Fletcher, on any subject you want to raise. So we'll give the phone number out to join us as well coming up in a couple segments. I had Bob on last week, and we ended up just basically talking about Iran-Contra and how he was involved in that inadvertently and began to testify before Congress. Then from that point, he began to investigate the New World Order. He was the first person I saw in about 94, 95, I know he's doing it before that, talking about weather weapons and chemtrailing and all of this stuff. And I remember thinking, man, this guy seems really credible, but weather weapons, come on. That was before they had shows on Discovery Channel about it. Now more and more they admit they're doing it, but again, the specifics they say are classified. It always goes, yeah, we're doing some testing, but details are classified. Well, here is Secretary of Defense Cohen's address on April 28th at a conference on terrorism, University of Georgia. You can just type in Secretary of Defense Cohen on weather weapons. And here's a quote. Others are engaging even in an eco type of terrorism whereby they can alter the climate, shut off earthquakes, volcanoes remotely through the use of electromagnetic waves. So there are plenty of genius minds out there that are at work finding ways in which they can wreak terror upon the nations. It's real, and that's the reason why we have to intensify our efforts, and that's why this is so important. And he goes on to talk about weather weapons and things in here. It's very interesting reading. The Army Times also picked it up. I've been covering that since I saw it then. But the issue here is Bill Gates is invested heavily in weather control and secret government projects. You can just type in Bill Gates terraforming investing. Bill Gates is heavily invested in gut flora causing autism because they know they're doing it on purpose with the vaccines. Then they'll have the treatment. Bill Gates is invested in the GMO and Monsanto. Wherever this very wicked individual is involved, that's where you find the prime evil. Now, a lot of meteorologists, well, I've interviewed them, have said, yeah, they see weather patterns now that they call chaff, but tiny aluminum, where military and private corporations are doing this. I've had Ben Livingston on, who was the father of weather weapons after World War II. He was in World War II. He flew into not just hurricanes that go 160 miles an hour, but 200 mile an hour and more typhoons that they have in the Pacific. The Atlantic has the hurricanes. They don't get going as fast. The only difference is they spin the opposite direction with the Earth's magnetic vortex. Now, all of this is going on, and there's huge secret programs. I've interviewed the head of HARP. He started accidentally getting into some stuff. A colonel popped in and cut him off the air. That interview is out there. That was like 6 years ago. We're not in Kansas anymore. And more meteorologists are mapping this and saying, look, there are more tornadoes. It's not just that we have more Doppler and better radar so we know when they happen. But now they're hitting populated areas statistically more than they did in the past, in areas that were already built up. It's not like we've built up more, so more is being hit. That's part of it. No, cities are being hit more. I mean, it was like someone was steering. Some said hundreds. Some estimates are hundreds that formed, but more than a dozen that hit the ground. 800 homes hit. Carnage, Fort Worth, Dallas, again, my old stomping ground where I'm from. And meteorologists are in MSNBC calling it very unusual. Enter the fact that earthquakes are associated in tectonic weapons with auroras forming even in the daytime. Magnetic field, like you normally only see at the North and South Poles, where the magnetic lines come into the Earth and then out, the Earth's shield from the sun coming in at the North and Southern Poles. You will see these vortexes form with all these other populations being hit in Chile and Pakistan and hitting right in key population centers in what we saw a few years ago in Haiti. I mean, it is getting really weird. And they admit they've got this, but it's classified. And enter Paul Watson's latest article. Another Wisconsin town reports strange booms, flashes of light. And it's getting crazy. And the feds have said, do not investigate. So, and again, historically, these are associated then with these weather pop-ups. But again, you can get flashes of light and booms with natural tectonic activity. Bob Fletcher, great to have you back with us. How did you first discover that weather weapons were being deployed and used? When did you discover it? You're an Iran-Contra whistleblower, a successful businessman.
Okay. And it's a pleasure to be back. I really enjoyed doing the program. Well, basically, I had, because of ending up being a federal witness in the Iran-Contra thing and being a federal witness relative to the Christic Institute's lawsuit back in the 80s, which was basically a legal action of racketeering filed against all of those people that were involved with the Iran-Contra stuff. They actually had filed that legal action, as a matter of fact, prior to the expose that became the Iran-Contra inquiry. I ended up being a witness in all of that, and that was what just switched on the light when I found out, and was right in the middle of it, when I found out what kind of unbelievable lies and deviant stuff that was going on with people that we were hoping was leading our country in the right direction. The Senate, the Congress, the CIA, the FBI, these guys were supposed to be the protectors of America as opposed to being the drug smugglers and the assassins of America, because that's what I found out to be a reality. And because I was there, I've been there, done that, I saw it. I sat in on conversations with these generals that were involved with the weapons and joking about where they were going to go next with where the next war was going to be and things of that sort. And these guys profiting, and of course that originally the tremendous amount of the weapons, illegal weapons, stolen weapons, and drugs and all that. The real big input was started in the Vietnam War, where they were smuggling the narcotics back and actually the carcasses of our own soldiers, which I can't think of anything more absolutely disgusting than something like that. And all of that was what opened my eyes. All right, so I started investigating and having people contact me after at the congressional and Senate level. There are a few guys always up there that are honest and legitimate. They're not there very long because they either become removed by assassination, for crying out loud, or they're simply removed by having somebody beat them in the next election by illegitimate voting or whatever the case is. But they remove the good guys as quick as they can. But there were always some good people up there that were looking into serious problems. So in that time frame here, we're talking going into the early 90s, and I was investigating and being involved with several different inquiries at the Senate and congressional level with some good guys. Dante Feisel was out of Florida, was concerned with the financial fraud going on, and several others doing things like that. They were kind of under the radar. These are not people that get a lot of media coverage, but they're trying to do the right thing. And, of course, Sonny Bono was another one. We get into that story some other time.
Yeah, we covered that last week. So how did you discover weather weapons? Because now...
So here's what happened. I get a phone call, because, when you're doing this stuff, I get all kinds of really great stuff where people would just send me information, and they would say, don't mention my name, but if you want to risk your life, here's some information. I kind of get a kick out of that. But so I got a phone call, and somebody said, how about the weather control as a weapon? And I said, I was like you. I was incredible. I said, what? And he said, yeah, they're working on this thing where they can control the weather and actually use it as a weapon of war. And I said, well, wow, if you could do that, that would be really something. You could wipe out a country, either financially or physically, do all sorts of destruction and things, but it wouldn't be like a nuclear thing. You nuke a place, you can't go in there for 100 years, so that's not a good way to take over a country or cause them problems. But if you could control the weather, that really would be something. And of course, but my reaction was, okay, well, listen, I got 800 things to do this month, so next month I'll look into it. And he said, we have a treaty. We have a treaty that we've signed back many years ago with at the United Nations.
Yeah, that was in, 1976?
That was right. It was 70. Technically, it was 78. But but it was started, I guess, around 76. And I, at that time, of course, nobody knew about this, all right? And it wasn't out in front. And I said, well, if I could find a treaty, that's actually signed relative to weather control and being able to do this stuff, that would really be something. So I said, okay, I'll look into it.
Stay there. We're going to see what you found next. Because, folks, look at how they keep hitting all these cities with these tornadoes. And they keep hitting mainly only in the cities. And even the meteorologists are saying, this is weird, and they're coming out of nowhere. It's not natural. Hello, I'm Alex Jones. Myself, my family, the info. Bob Fletcher, or they get arrested for unpaid tickets or whatever, and they get like $10. $10? I certainly don't get that. I'm being discriminated against as a citizen because I comply with everything. I am abused and treated like filth. And it just shows the lawlessness of God. The judges just let the illegals go. Well, then why shouldn't I just change my name to some new name and just say I'm illegal from Mars? I I'll say I'm John Carter from Mars. I mean, that sounds pretty good. And they just pull me over, and I'll just say, no speak earthling. Boy, who it is. In fact, where is that card? They said they'd give me a report off record, and I never even tracked it down. I can't keep track of all this. There's too much crime. And they were going, oh, it's true. And they were telling me the judges, where the illegals come in with DWIs, and they'll give them maybe $100. I mean, they admit the illegal aliens, if they do get arrested for DWI, just basically get released. I was talking to a prosecutor in Austin, off record. They actually came over to the office, and they've been there, I don't know, 14 years or longer. I don't want to get government. I mean, it's illegal for the NSA to be spying on everybody and to have the CIA director say the CIA is spying on citizens domestically, which he said 3 weeks ago in a public speech, and to brag, yeah, it's great. We don't really have the Fourth Amendment anymore. People just accept the fact, this is what he said, go read the quotes, that you're